Folks, we would like to begin the meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 1st, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the Daly City Planning Commission meeting. Before we start, if you can kindly please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Tallarico?
Yes.
Crump?
Here.
Edelman?
Here.
Satori?
Here.
Sylvester?
Here. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is the minutes, and I see we don't have any at this time, so if we can, I guess, table that, I guess, for the next meeting. Is that about right? That's correct. Thank you, Council. All right. Before we begin the agenda, if anyone here would like to speak on any of the matters on the agenda for this evening, please fill out a card and pass it up to us so that we can entertain your concerns. All right, first item on the agenda is item number 1, minor subdivision sub-4-15-10787 and design review DR-4-15-10788. And I'd like to turn that over to our staff member, Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner Sylvester and members of the Planning Commission. The applicant on this item has actually requested a continuance to the October 4th meeting. As the Commission may have read in the staff report, the city staff had identified some issues with the approval of this minor subdivision, and the applicant would like some additional time to rectify those, and feels he has a solution and needs until the 4th of October to do that. So we are recommending in favor of the continuance.
Thank you, Mr. Longhausen. Any comments or additional from any of the commissioners?
No, I move that we accept the continuance.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? On the vote to continue this matter until October's meeting, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item number 2, which is use permit and UPR-5-15-10938 and design review DR-5-15-10939. And I would like to turn it over to our staff, Mr. Guido Persicone. Did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
That's fine.
All right, thank you. You have the floor, sir.
Good evening, Planning Commission. This is for a design review and use permit for an existing facility at 1680 and 1685 Edgeworth. Allied Waste is requesting this in order to operate 19 fuel pumps. At the end of the shift, what they would do is they would pull the garbage trucks into the parking spaces and fill up the trucks through a slow fill process. This is being requested as part of the franchise agreement the city signed with the applicant, and it will convert the existing diesel to natural gas, which is better for the environment. This shows the existing facility and the proposed facility, which is across the street. If approved, the existing facility would be repaved and used for customer parking. This just is another example of the site and the zoning for the proposed site. This shows some of the existing adjacent uses. There is residential near the proposed use. There's an automotive use at the corner of Pierce and Bryant. And there's a project that doesn't show on the aerial But it is currently, they are doing the rough grading for the development right now. This is the general overview of the site showing the 19 spaces. And I've received quite a few emails and phone calls from community members in regards to issues related to safety. I will let the applicant speak in more detail, but just a general overview. There will be an emergency response plan and a hazardous materials plan that will be reviewed by the planning division and the fire marshal. There will be emergency shutoffs throughout the site. There will be 24-hour emergency watch from a call center that will get patched into PD and fire. And in terms of the existing infrastructure, the actual city infrastructure will not be modified. They'll potentially be running a 2-inch lateral from Bryant onto the site. And just to provide some context, that 2-inch lateral is equivalent to an apartment or a restaurant type use. So staff visited a similar site in South San Francisco that abuts Class A office space, and there was no demonstrable impacts to the community. There were some initial concerns related to noise. 60 decibels averaged out over a 24-hour period is the city noise threshold. There were 4 sample points that were taken in a noise analysis, and none of those points exceeded the 60 decibel threshold. However, a condition of approval has been placed to ensure continuous oversight by the city. The applicant has requested some potential modification to the language, which we can discuss in more detail. But irregardless, noise will be monitored by the city as part of any conditional use permit. The Planning Commission and City Council have continuous jurisdiction over those permits. Additionally, to reduce the noise impacts to the community, the staff is requesting that the trucks come off Edgeworth and back into the parking spaces. So at 4 in the morning, they can exit off of Bryant without having to use their beepers or whatever the term would be. We're also asking for a 6-foot masonry wall to reduce the noise impacts to the residential directly to the north and east of the project site. In terms of lighting, there will be a lighting plan that will be required to be submitted, and the applicant will have to demonstrate that there will be no light pollution to abutting properties. Another issue that has to be resolved is there is an existing building that abuts 2 properties. The building official has given the applicant very clear direction in terms of the ways to resolve this issue, either through a lot line adjustment, a lot merger, or demolishing the building. The applicant verbally is saying they want to do a lot line adjustment, which resolves this issue. There's quite a few members from the community here, and I'll let them speak to their specific issues. But in terms of traffic, and I will go over very briefly some of the comments, and we'll once again let the applicant speak in more detail. But in terms of traffic, they're actually moving the site over. So the negligible impacts to the school along Annie, one could argue, are being reduced because they are moving the potential use 1 block away. The facility's been there for 30 to 35 years, and there's been no potential impact to the school along Annie. The trucks leave at 4 a.m., well before school starts, and will return at the end of their shift throughout the afternoon. And in terms of, there was concerns that this use potentially could become a public CNG facility. That is not the permit before the Planning Commission and for review by City Council. And any modification to the existing permit would have to come back before this body. Additional conditions of approval would have to be put on the project. And a plain reading of the zoning code potentially wouldn't even support that more intense use. So The project is categorically exempt from CEQA as an infill development. And therefore, staff, based on the preponderance of the information in the staff report and the presentation and what we've reviewed, are recommending that the Planning Commission forward the use permit and design review to the City Council for approval.
Thank you.
One
Thank you.
question for him. Guido, just one question. You use the expression, well, you've got the slide up, existing and proposed. The existing is not a CNG facility,
It is
though.
not.
It is not.
Existing
Okay.
site.
Yeah, gotcha.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Ray, please.
good evening, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Persicone. Do you honestly believe that the environmental design that you are trying to tell to us that we have to approve this did you evaluate carefully about, especially the public health, public safety of this project? Did you study it carefully?
Yes.
Did you consider about the public safety when it comes to the danger, the risk that it can bring about by this CNG? Did you consider that?
Yes. I will let the applicant speak more to the safety issues.
No, I'm asking you because I'm going
So-
to ask
Right.
you yourself.
Yes,
as-
I mean, I have personally visited 3 of the sites in the last 6 weeks. I've done quite a bit of research on this. There's been 100 that have been built.
What
in
is
the
the
last-
risk do you think it can happen in case there is some problem? Because I'm more of, I would say, prevention than reacting to a cure. Because why do you have to put the facility there when this is for the very near the neighborhood? And then, of course, CNG, you cannot see it. You can only feel it by if you're dying or you're going to die because of asphyxiation. That's the point. You cannot see it. It can, 0.001 mistake can be catastrophes in this area. If person doing this can make a mistake, it can explode. Probably not now, probably in the future, but we are approving something that is long range. So if we can probably analyze this, evaluate this, and see to it that it can be a foolproof, that this will not happen, God forbid it, but you know what happened in San Bruno. This is the things that we have to consider,
Right,
Mr. Persicone.
right.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Through the chair, Commissioner Satori. So what the planning division does with an application like this is that we take it in and our job as planners is to put the review of the project in the responsible hands. In this case, the fire department, for example, has reviewed the proposal, and there are a number of measures that the applicant will describe that essentially speak to the safety aspect of this facility. One of the things that has been brought up in some of the letters is the risk of having some sort of a large a disaster at this location. And one thing that needs to be pointed out is that unlike some of the instances that we've had in other places, this is not they're not bringing a new gas line to this facility. It's not the infrastructure in the street is not changing. They're bringing in essentially a 2-inch gas main from the street, and they are compressing it on the site and then delivering that compressed gas immediately
That is the
to
problem.
the
If you're
vehicles.
compressing it on the site, that's what I'm saying.
Commissioner Satori, please, Mr. Lunkhausen, would you continue, please?
So that's all we wanted to say, though, is that we do put that the evaluation of the safety in the hands of the fire department. They've reviewed this project thoroughly, and as identified in the conditions of approval, there'll be a safety plan. There's a number of safety mechanisms that are incorporated into the project, and the city staff, including the fire department, do feel comfortable with this moving forward.
Through the chair, please.
Commissioner Satori, any further questions that you, concerns you
Yeah,
have?
I still have some question because I'm not altogether against CNG because this is the alternative fuel. In fact, in the modern world, is being used. But the location is, I would say, not appropriate. You know, you are in the inner core of the city, wherein you're putting up something that is, it could be a potential danger in the future. Probably not in the first few years, but in the handling of the so-called CNG, because this can really just like what happened in San Bruno. They're finger pointing. This is somebody has to blame on this. It can happen, and you cannot see, you cannot touch the CNG. You can only feel it by means of air, which you can die of asphyxiation through the. It can build up. Probably not today, but in 1 day or 2 days, even in 1 week, you don't know the problem. You will only know it if it will explode, especially if there is spark. This is, I'm not against this project, but if they can go to another location wherein, like near the ocean or on the mountain, but not in the inner city of Daly City. That's my point, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I will ask more questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Satori. Commissioner Talarico?
Yes, Guido, the trucks, there's not gonna be an increase of trucks. They're doing 19 trucks an hour, 20?
The number of trucks will
Stay
not
the same.
change.
It's been there 30 years.
That's
It's
correct.
been
That's
going
my
around the
understanding.
neighborhood for 30 years. It's been ding, ding, backup alarm 30 years. So we're not even, in fact, you were saying the traffic flow, they're trying to reduce it and, so I'm just trying to build up the idea of saying, and CNG is not any more volatile than a gas station. In fact, gas is more volatile.
Definitely.
So a gas, if you don't need, you can put a cigarette out in liquid gas, but the fumes will do it. So CNG to gas, so what if we had a gas station? I'm just trying to get the picture. We need, what I'm trying to see is, and for everybody, we as a community, we need to service our companies and service our people. And nobody wants anything to hurt anybody. This went through all federal, state, local agencies that approved in particular our fire department.
It will, once, through the
Yeah.
permitting process, it will receive any permits that are necessary.
Thank
And that's a good corollary. You know, we treated it somewhat similar to a gasoline station in terms of, you know, how we reviewed it, in terms of, you know, the allowable use and considering the risk to neighbors.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners?
I have no questions for the commission. I will for the applicant.
I have one question, and I guess it's almost like on the lines of Commissioner Talarico. And my question was earlier, how are these trucks being filled up now?
I would have to defer to the applicant on that in terms of where they're filling them up.
Oh, okay, so I saw something that was the existing site. They're not filling up with gas at the existing site now, and we're
That I'm not
converting
aware of.
over. No, okay, we'll find out. All right, well, great. So shall we bring up the applicant, and perhaps the applicant can address some of the concerns? And we do have a few cards, so you may have to come back up a little bit later
Fine.
again. Okay, and would you please state your name for the record? And
My name is Pamela Pullen. I'm with Clean Energy, and we are the applicant for Republic Services on this project.
thank you, Ms. Bullen. Is your mic on there on the front there?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name's Evan Boyd. I'm the general manager for Allied Waste Republic Services, also the applicant company.
Thank you. Thank you both. And I guess we'll start off with Commissioner Satori. He had some concerns earlier, and maybe you can provide some insight for him. And
You can go first.
Commissioner Talarico, and we'll go from there.
Any opening statements?
Do you have any opening statements at this time?
Yeah, so honorable chair and,
Yes.
and commissioners, appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity to present this project to you today. Guido, I'm not sure, we've got a sort of a clean image, sort of a similar image that maybe you can put up there, might be a little easier.
That was-
Maybe we can flip back just to the image we had, but to address some of the concerns, I think the main The main thing that we want to get across to the neighborhood and the community is that this is a very safe operation. Is actually, to your point, less volatile than a gasoline station. So we talk about stations being in the inner core of the city. CNG station is less, or CNG is less volatile from an ignition perspective, and I'm sure the fire folks will be able to confirm this than is CNG. Just to the, on this image, just to the east, up Pierce, is an actual gas station. Valero sits just to the east. Just to the north and east on the corner of Sullivan and Washington is Arco. So there's a number of gas stations and actual fuel sites in this vicinity. Frankly, and I don't want to tell you guys how to look at this thing, but we shouldn't be looking at this as a public fuel station. This isn't a situation where, you know, you've got an operation where cars and the public are coming in at 5 a.m., pulling up to a gas pump and driving away. It really is a parking lot for commercial vehicles, and from an aesthetic perspective, from a traffic perspective, from a noise perspective, and I know that's been some of the complaints or some of the concerns that we have seen from the community. We actually believe that this project is going to improve upon the existing operation that has existed there, to Mr. Talarico's point, for 30 plus years. And so let me touch on a few of those items. Number one, we do have an audible study that was done today. We have a report that our project manager will be submitting and providing to the planning department that provides for the current levels versus current audible levels or decibel levels of the trucks and of the operation versus what the projected levels will be. Just in big round numbers, a CNG garbage truck is about 10 times less from an audible standpoint, from a decibel standpoint, than is a current diesel truck. So multiply that by 20 trucks, because that's what we currently operate with, and that's what we will operate under the existing, or under the new agreement. You've got, 10 times 20 less noise, and you do the math there, 200 times less the noise that you will have with the current operation. From a traffic perspective, and I know there's been some concerns with the school and with some walking patterns, we've never had an issue there. One, I think because our folks do a pretty good job of remaining safe, and obviously children are taught to be as safe as they can be walking home. Two, frankly, the operations just don't overlap with school children coming to school or walking home. The trucks start at 4 a.m., they are all out, and then they come back at staggered times throughout the day from about 10:30 in the morning till about 2:30 in the afternoon. So most of the time, the trucks are in and done by the time the children are out of school. That would be point number one. Point number two, most of the children that I've seen, and my office is at 1680 Edgeworth Avenue and has been for since I've been with the company, the last 4.5, 5 years. Most of the children come down the stair, if they're coming this direction, come down the staircase that is behind our facility on Annie Street and walk down Annie Street. If you see right there where the pointer is, that's Annie Street. We park trucks currently, about 80% of our trucks are parked between Annie Street and Edgeworth, which is to the right. About I guess 50% of that 80%, so the trucks you see up there in blue exit Annie Street and enter Annie Street now, where the other trucks exit Edgeworth and enter Edgeworth. What we will be doing is moving the parking of those vehicles completely between Edgeworth and Bryant, with no ingress and egress for any of the commercial vehicles off of Annie Street. Where the Annie Street ingress and egress is, and the Edgeworth, the west side of Edgeworth, will be repaved and used for customer and employee parking, which we believe helps from a traffic perspective, because you got the majority of the children walking down Annie Street. Some do walk down Edgeworth, but most I've seen walk down Annie. So we're moving that ingress over to the opposite side of Edgeworth. So on the east side of Edgeworth, where the trucks will enter, and then they will exit Bryant, which is a much more industrial neighborhood than Annie. Another point on the traffic situation is street sweeping on Edgeworth is Mondays and Fridays. On the west side of the street, it's Mondays, and on the east side of the street, it's Fridays. Parking there on Mondays and Fridays is, you can imagine, for those of you that live in areas with street sweeping, is abysmal, because we just don't have any employee parking on site or any customer parking on site. It's all street parking. With this project, we now have 25 spaces for regular off-street parking for customers and employees, which we don't have today. So we're taking those cars and trucks of our employees and our customers off of Edgeworth, off of Annie, off of Pierce, and placing them on our property, which we think is a vast improvement from what you see today. And I can tell you firsthand, because I've paid the DCPD probably 5 times $33 for parking where I shouldn't have parked and mistakenly forgetting. But parking is troublesome on Mondays and Fridays, and not just for us, certainly for the residents that are in that area. And we think this project vastly improves not only those traffic patterns that we discussed, but also the parking situation and therefore the traffic as a result. I think the other thing that I'd like to put in perspective, if you look at the bottom right corner of the aerial photo there, the white roof building, just that's barely in screen, just below there, that pointer.
Oh, right there.
That's Peninsula Del Rey. That's the new senior or newer senior living facility. That facility, my understanding, has at least a 2-inch supply line, gas supply line going into it, and I believe it may even be 3-inch. Our project is proposing a 2-inch gas supply line coming off of Bryant Street onto the property, and then networking off to the different islands. So to put in perspective, a 2-inch supply line is not uncommon in this area for that type of gas supply and usage, as it's could be residential. I guess you would consider Peninsula Del Rey commercial use in general, but this is not a situation. And I've heard San Bruno been mentioned. This is not high transmission gas lines at very high PSI coming into Daly City. This is existing gas lines that are already in the ground, on Bryant, on Pierce, on Edgeworth, that current developments are using and are tapping into. Pam can go in a little more detail about some of the technical aspects, but I know she talked to the developer that's doing the development just to the north of the 1680 Edgeworth site right now, and that is going to be a minimum of a 2-inch pipeline, and she told him today it might be a 4. So, we're talking about there are a lot more larger users of gas and natural gas in that area than what we will be using. From an aesthetics perspective, you can sort of see that area right now where we're proposing this project. It was a junkyard. And if you want to talk about health hazards and fire hazards and safety hazards, historically, look at what was there. Because what was there historically certainly was a health hazard, certainly was a fire hazard, and certainly was a safety hazard to the neighborhood. And this project is not going to be that. This project is going to be clean, it's going to be nice looking, it is going to be more quiet than it is today, and it's certainly going to be safer than the junkyards and the scaffolding yard and the plaster yard and the concrete yard and the number of other facilities that have operated there in the past. And I can attest to that by watching what used to go on there across the street and walking those sites beforehand. And I can tell you that the landlord nearly did a backflip, and I believe if he could have, he would have, when we said, look, I'd be interested in leasing this whole space and cleaning it up, because he knows that we are going to do just that. And I guess if the one last thing I would mention, just from an aesthetic standpoint, it's sort of hard to see from this photo, but if you look down Bryant there on the right-hand side, you can see the AT&T building, and you can see the parking on AT&T with the white vans and the cars, and that's essentially what we are building here, is a parking lot to park our trucks nicely, to put that, to improve the traffic patterns, both for efficiencies from a company perspective, efficiency from a neighborhood perspective, help improve traffic. I understand the concerns. Again, many of the concerns I've heard, I think, are out of confusion. These sites are very safe, and I actually, with that, I'll turn it over to Pam Pullen, who's with Clean Energy. They're our project group, and actually, before I do that, I heard the mention of two more things I want to address. Commissioner Satori, in regards to your concerns about you can't see it. There's a smell, obviously, with natural gas, and I won't get into technical aspects because nobody wants me to be an engineer, I'm sure, unless it's a sanitation engineer. But with that, there are ways and there are safety measures that are frankly above and beyond regular gasoline that prevent sort of spontaneous combustion. And again, I know the sensitivity. I understand the sensitivity in this area. You know, I live in the general area as well, and I witnessed, you know, what could happen. But this is not that. I promise you. With that, again, I think I'll turn it over to
Can
Pam.
I ask you some quick
Sure.
questions, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Well, it was a nice sales talk, Mr. Ivan, and I would say that, you know, a gasoline station, or you can have diesel or gasoline, several in this area, and you can see it. You can touch, you can see and feel the gasoline. But the compressed natural gas, you cannot see it, you cannot feel it. You can only feel it and smell it. But don't get me wrong, CNG is the thing of the future. It's clean, but the moment it's been mishandled here, it can take about weeks or months to discover it. The moment you know it, people will be dying. That's what I'm saying. You're very near the school, the neighborhood, they're putting up affordable housing and so forth and so on. And my question here is, do you have any location outside the city that you can put this in, just in case?
Outside of the city of
Daly
Daly
City?
City?
Yeah.
We have not explored other options for construction of one of these facilities. It's very costly. You know,
That's part of the business, you know.
Yeah, right. But part of what we proposed to the city from a garbage collection standpoint and a refuse collection standpoint was operation from the city, from within city limits, and with property that we.
Very seldom I have seen that in the city, like heavy populated city like Daly City. You can put up some sort of a CNG. Whereas in San Diego, I have seen this,
Yeah.
mind you, because I happen to be a state board member of engineering. That's why you're saying that sanitation engineering. What sanitation engineering are you talking about? It's about safety engineering.
Yeah. So all I can tell you, Commissioner Satori, is we have not explored other sites for construction of the facility. I'm confident in the safety of the facility. The reason I'm confident, and I can have our project manager go into much more detail, but the reason that I'm confident in the safety of the facility is there are adjacent communities, South San Francisco being one of them, where these facilities exist. Actually, that facility is a much more robust facility in terms of the way they process and create gas. I won't even get into the details
So
of
you
that.
can go, because... okay.
But that facility is within feet of office space, of bike paths, because it's right on the Bay Point, of hiking paths. I've been out there a number of times and observed people walking as far as me to you from where these trucks are filled up. So, you know, I know that it's safe in that respect. There's a project in the city of Napa, I believe, that Pamela can address, that's very similar situation is here, where it's relatively close to residential. We have a similar facility that was just installed in the city, would be actually the county of Contra Costa and Pacheco, that was within a couple hundred feet of residential as well. And Pam and her organization, Clean Energy, installs these facilities across the country for our organization.
Don't get me wrong, because I am for CNG also, but not for this location. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
and I understand the concern, and I understand the concern with this location is I assume proximity to residential. And again, what I'm trying to express is there are other facilities in this area that provide this sort of fueling that are in a similar proximity to residential, and that's all I can tell you. The technical aspects of it, I'll have to
I am
turn
more
over.
of a prevention than reacting to a cure. Because if the problem is there, then somebody will say, oh, you see, the planning and the city council approved it without even thinking about the future.
Again, at the end of the day, I would look at this, I personally, knowing natural gas and the volatility versus the volatility of petroleum gas that we all use in our vehicles, or most of us use in our vehicles. It's simply proven that it's less volatile and therefore, would be considered safer. And you've got residential next to gas
Less
stations.
volatile if it is not being used constantly, like a car, just one car. But you are going to use this every day, right? Or especially for the trucks, there'll be.
So I guess maybe I misunderstood the question. Is there going to be more volume through a gas station than there
No,
is?
there'll be more movement for this, for the CNG.
Oh, no,
right?
there'll be much more volume through a gas station than would be through this facility.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I guess the last point I would make, and then if there's any technical questions, I'm sure Pam would be happy to answer them. There is currently, right now, we have 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel on the 1680 Edgeworth site. And we fuel diesel vehicles there on a daily basis. It's not our primary fuel source. It's more of a backup source.
is it CNG or gasoline?
It's gasoline.
Gasoline, you
Yeah,
can see gasoline.
it's diesel,
There can be a
diesel
leak,
fuel.
gasoline.
Um,
But CNG, it's only one time.
Hey, all
The
right.
moment
All right, if we may, let's not go back and forth here.
Okay, I'm finished,
for
Mr.
the-
Chairman.
Thank you so much. I would like to hear from Ms. Pam
Yes,
Pullen,
Pam.
please, and maybe you can offer additional insight for us.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair. I would like to touch a little bit on Mr. Satori's comments. Natural gas, it is a vapor. It's the same natural gas that goes into your house, that you cook with, that you heat your home with. It's exactly the same. What the properties are that make it noticeable to your smell and to your, is the mercaptan, I believe it is added to the gas by the utility companies. So, and that is a safeguard that they do, so that if there is a gas leak in your home, or if you turn your stove on and it doesn't light all the way, all of a sudden you smell gas. That's the reason for the odorization of the gas by the utility company. And you spoke about asphyxiations. When natural gas vents, it disperses quickly. When it's in a contained area, it builds up. So ours is an outside facility. There's no buildup of vapors. It is dispersed into the air. It disperses rather quickly. When there's maintenance of CNG vehicles, the maintenance buildings have to be renovated and brought up to code to be able to work on CNG, which includes venting. So there's specific guidelines that the fire guidelines have, NFPA, the National Fire Protection Agency, international fire codes, state codes. They all have their codes that provide the safety for operating compressed natural gas as a fuel and for working on vehicles that contain natural gas tanks. The natural gas is about 95% methane, and it's one of the cleanest burning alternative fuels available. We build many stations across the nation. Right now, we're in New York City. We're building in Bronx, in Queens, in Brooklyn. We're in the permitting stages with the fire department and the city to put public stations on busy street corners, right in the middle of, New York. Huge, it's a huge undertaking. And the fire department, they also, and just to make a point here, all of their stations are attended. They have gas station attendants at all their stations, and they have given us a waiver to operate our stations without an attendant. They are operated by a card lock, which is a card that you put into the system, you have a PIN code, and then you can fuel your vehicle. So they've already given us the waiver for that. They've done a lot of research. It took, several months to get through that process, but they are moving forward with that. So just a point there. There is replacing one diesel truck with a CNG truck is like taking the emissions of 325 cars off the road just by one diesel truck. And to Evan's point, one diesel truck idling is louder than 10 CNG engines idling at the same time. There's no EPA impacts. CNG is not classified as a hazardous fuel, and it's non-toxic. On gasoline pumps, diesel, you'll notice that there's the Prop 65, where you have to disclose if there's if there's known risks by the chemicals, which are known by the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, et cetera. Our stations, the label for this is this material does not contain any chemicals which are known to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm at concentrations that trigger Cal Prop 65. So you can't get much safer than that. The gasoline stations with petroleum, the gasoline is trucked into those stations and it's deposited into large underground tanks, hundreds of gallons of gasoline, and we're driving over that all the time. As soon as you drive into a gas station, you're on top of hundreds of gallons of fuel. The nice thing about our CNG is that all of the equipment is above ground. There's no storage of fuel on site other than the buffer storage vessel, which is very small. I think it equates to about 75 gallons if you did a equation of fuel. The gas is brought into the site from the line in the street, as Evan was telling you, and then there's a service line that goes to our equipment. The service line is brought to our site by the utility company, a meter is set, and then from there we take the lines to our equipment. The first thing it goes to, it'll go through the meter set assembly because it's metered gas, just like in your home. It goes into a gas dryer where the moisture and any debris in the gas is removed. The gas is dried. There it goes into the compressor. The compressors are, they have a maximum working pressure of approximately 5,500, I'm sorry, and we pressurize up to 3,600, so there's another safety guard there, so we don't go to the maximum pressure that is allowed to be in that tank. From the compressor station, it goes into the storage vessel. Some of our sites have 3 stacked vessels. This particular site, because of the number of vehicles, there's only 1 vessel. So, but 3 is typical. From the vessel, it then goes to a priority panel. From the priority panel, it's filtered to the individual trucks. The trucks come in at the end of their day, and they'll back into their parking spot. They have designated spots. The driver will hook up, and then at some point during the evening, it's a predetermined time, depending on pressure and other things, but the system will turn on and the trucks will fuel very slowly over a 6 to 8 hour period. When the trucks are full, the system shuts down, and when the drivers come in the morning, their trucks are ready to go, they're fueled, and off they go on their routes. They leave quietly, as we planned this project so that the trucks would back in the afternoon and not in the morning. Again, you have quieter trucks in the neighborhood. There is no air quality issues. We don't even get an air quality permit. I mean, it's an exemption. The natural gas, unlike diesel exhaust, is not classified as a toxic air contaminant by Cal EPA. It's lighter than air and dissipates rapidly if there is a release. If there is a gas leak, the gas will rise and disperse. Gasoline will puddle on the ground, and any spark or whatever can set that puddle of gas off. It doesn't dissipate. It sits there. It contaminates the ground. There's also, and just to bring this point up, I did some research on gas stations and fires, et cetera, and this is an older report, but 117,000 gas stations, there were 5,000 fires annually. And 1 in 23 gas stations will have some kind of station fire during their existence. There's so many gas station incidents that they escape media attention. They're just not even brought up anymore. The compressed natural gas and the way that those facilities operate, there hasn't been one. We've built over 500 plus stations across the United States. We haven't had one incident where we've had an explosion or a compromise of a vessel, of a tank. Anything that you hear about is likely associated with the tanks that hold the fuel in a truck or a car. But as far as our stations, we haven't had any problems. They are equipped with emergency shutdown devices. Anytime there's a sensor that goes off, anything that triggers the slightest little mechanical, slightest anything, it is triggered, and it calls our call. It shuts down the entire system. Our call center is called, and depending on what the item is, a service technician will be sent out. That's the typical response, is it's a service technician problem that he has to take care of, an adjustment or something. The equipment cannot be turned back on remotely. It has to be turned back on site by a person. So that's another safeguard. The chance for ignition is, the flammability is a much lower range than diesel or gasoline. The flammability is a 5 to 15% range, and it dissipates quickly, so that range disappears fast. The ignition temperature is a higher temperature. It's 1,000 to 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit compared to diesel that can ignite at a much lower temperature. We fuel close to 4,000 trucks a day. We also have stations that, back on the east, in the east, there are not as many pipelines as we have here. There's not as much natural gas in pipelines. So some of our stations pump the natural gas into big tanker trucks. They take the tanker trucks with natural gas down the highway to a facility such as Republic Services, and those trucks fuel off the tanker trucks. That's pretty much all I have to say. I have many more points, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Well, through the chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
thank you very
Talerico.
much. I can now go mix some natural gas, but I think one of the things I would like to express to the public watching, whatever, I think we sometimes get stuck with vocabulary. liquid nitrogen, liquid natural gas, the propane tanks, different than CNG. We're talking two different items. You want a bomb, you got a propane tank. This CNG, it's the same line that's coming up the street to light your stove. So the propensity for an accident, as far as I know, and I lived on the East Coast, is less than the trucks that deliver on the East Coast in the winter where we have accidents. So I think for the public and here and for those, we can get confused. Evan, I have a question for you. May I? And Mr. Santori did ask, if you had an alternative, Muscle Rock, because right now there's a $12,000 gallon diesel fuel tank there.
Yes.
And there's 1,000 on the property here.
Yes.
So when we do if we do the CNG, we eliminate 13,000 gallons of diesel
That's correct.
that could leak and go down the ocean, right? Now,
Correct.
if I asked you, why don't you build it there? Could you tell me why you can't build it there?
Yeah, a number of reasons. Number one, that property is owned by the city of Daly City. And, without getting into too much detail, the city over the years has done studies, and I think it's been well documented in regards to the erosion of that cliffside along the coast there. And I believe there was a study done in about 5 years ago that showed that area of the coast is sliding off into the Pacific at about 6 feet a year.
Yeah. Okay, just to continue, because I'm just trying to clarify for myself that people hearing on TV. So there the option is gone. Now, if I'm correct, and I remember going through the process of the contract study, so to speak. Anyway, this thing you're doing is part of your contract to the city of Daly City, that you are supposed to have these trucks converted and the CNG are non-pollution. Am I right with that?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're not doing this just because, Allied Waste wants to do it. You haven't complied to the city, and you seem to be doing it a little earlier. So we're having something here that the city has already drawn up conditions of the contractual 15 years. So Allied Waste really has to do it, and sooner than later. So now we got Muscle Rocks belonging to the city, and they said, no, you're not gonna put it there. Because a little shake and it's out to Hawaii. So, I mean, so I'm just trying to get this as simple as possible. There's things we have to live with, and San Bruno was the fault of PG&E. So let's not try to put San Bruno in Daly City. Terrible that it was. Lives lost, tremendous. That's PG&E over there. This is, we need to have clean air. The trucks are going to be cleaner. You're removing 13 gallons of diesel. It's part of your contractual agreement. So I'm just trying to throw that out. That's it. Good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Before you sit him down, I do have a question for Evan.
Okay.
Evan, I'm just, it may be you and it may be Clean Energy that would speak to this, but it was mentioned that there would be the slow fill process starting, and this would take 6 to 8 hours. During that process, I presume the compressors run pretty much all the time. What is the noise from the compressors? Because this obviously would go into the nighttime hours for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Vice Chair Crump, and I think I'll defer that to our
Thought you
Attorney
might.
of Clean Energy.
Hello again. We've had noise measurements done on the site. Our noise consultant is actually here tonight, so we can go into more detail if needed. The measurements that were taken, she started at 4 a.m. There's 4 different locations that they were taken at. This is at, so 5 to 6 a.m., the decibels were 62, 58, 54. So we averaged, one location was 62, 55, 50, 56, 61, 64. And then don't forget there's some construction going on out there too. So this was ambient noise. This was noise in the neighborhood. The we just got this today. The predicted noise levels, location 1 is 55. Would you like to speak to this, Beth?
Questions about the compressors and what the projected decibel.
Yeah.
Right.
The city's actually received a noise study at the time of the application, and the noise consultant can elaborate on some of the more details, but essentially these compressors produce a dBA of about 80 right at the machine. Of course, there are a number of physical obstacles in between the machine and the nearest residences. There's distance, of course. There's a solid block wall that the city's required, and so these are definitely some mitigating factors. The noise study that was supplied to us shows that the facility complies with the city's overall noise standard, which is averaged throughout the day, which is 60 dBA. There's a equation for how it's smooth through the day. But the condition of approval that Guido shown you that sort of says that we're going to be continuing to monitor noise speaks to these maximum noise levels that could occur at night. We were still concerned about those, and that's what the noise consultant has studied in some more depth, because we didn't know actually when you're in a house what's the predicted noise level in the middle of the night. That's not the city noise standard. So now we're kind of going beyond what the city noise standard is and just asking a question beyond that. And so then we'll turn the answer to that over to her,
Okay.
if you have it.
Ma'am, you're,
My name's Beth Halliday. I'm with Noise Expert Acoustical Consulting, and I've worked on more than 30 clean energy projects doing noise studies. A noise study is asked to be done when there's residents around the area that is going to be put. We do projections based on the manufacturer's information on the compressors and also on decibel levels that we've gone out and researched on existing clean energy facilities. The one they're putting in here is the newest type of system.
Yeah, it's a new compressor that is being manufactured right now by AMW, and it has a lower noise rating than our old compressors. So the specs and the manufacturer's information on this new piece of equipment was provided to our noise consultant, and they factored that in when using a noise analysis for the noise that the compressors will put out.
Okay, because we all know at night, the decibel level of ambient noise is going to be way down. And my only concern here was because of the absolute proximate residential neighborhood. We aren't even like Pacheco, which was 200 feet. They're right there. We just approved a big project across the street. Are these people going to be kept up at night because of the noise of the compressors? And so that's basically the issue I'm trying to get a handle on.
Okay, we came up with levels, the noise levels on the property line with the compressors running, the predicted noise levels range from 47 to 57 was at location 2, which is right on the
Right next door.
right next to the compound area where the compressors and the gas dryer is going to be in that
It's in
area.
that compound area.
Right there.
So the residents at level 2, and that's a vacant site right now.
You've told me what I want to know. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And I'll just add one other thing too. This was taken without the factoring in of the new block wall that will be along property line.
8 foot.
It's a
It's a
6-footer.
6-foot wall.
Get that right.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of, there's a 6-foot wall here, and then also in the interior of the site, there's another wall that separates some of the equipment from itself.
You can have some bushes around the wall.
I don't believe there's any landscaping there. There was other landscaping on site. In fact, there's a, yeah,
was thinking
there's a
of
requirement
sound.
for that. But no, the real noise attenuation here would be by distance to nearest adjacent residents, as well as these walls that are going to be built.
Thank you.
Free earplugs for the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Unless we have any further questions of the applicant by any one of the commissioners at this time.
I do have one
Oh,
question.
Commissioner Ellerman,
Right,
please.
so question is, how many employees are there going to be on site during the day, and are there going to be any employees on site during the night when the fueling is going on?
During the day, there's approximately 60 employees on site, varying hours of the day, but at the peak, there's 60. There will remain 60. We, right now, do not have any employees on site beyond about the 8 p.m. hour.
Okay. And so with the automatic shut-off equipment in place, should there be an alarm that goes off that says that the gas flow doesn't shut off? What is the estimated response time for somebody to come and manually shut it off?
Pam, I think I'll have you address that for us.
Once there's a detection of a breach or something that would trigger an emergency shut-off device, the entire system shuts down. Gas does not move. It's sealed within the compressor. There's no more gas coming in from the meter, from the street line. The call center is called, like I mentioned before. They determine if it's a technician that needs to come out or if it's an emergency responder that would come out immediately. And a technician can take anywhere from an hour to several hours. So they make the call as to what type of emergency response is needed, and they act appropriately.
Pam, thank you very much. Before you sit down, so your explanation was very good as far as the whole process, and it answered most of my questions. My concern right now, though, is if it takes an hour for somebody to come out, should all systems fail, because it's electronics, it's computers that are doing all these things, it's an hour for response?
Then Evans trucks don't fuel, they wait.
Well,
They wait until the technician comes out. The technician, we can't restart it. The
no, I
technician doesn't
understand, but what if it
live,
doesn't shut off?
if it doesn't shut off.
What if the computer fails and it doesn't shut off?
So the
emergency-
response time, the system will notify 911 and the fire department and police
So the
department.
fire department gets notified?
Correct. If it's
and-
it's a
and
complete system failure, fire department's notified and they're in minutes.
They're very close, okay.
Yeah, that's what I failed to mention, that they would
That's what I'm looking
do
for.
911 to the fire department, and it's also, they have direct communication.
Yeah,
so.
because waiting an hour is way too
No,
long.
no, not in something like that.
And hopefully it'll never happen. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
If it's
thank
just
you.
a routine call, then it's handled by a technician.
Understand, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Edelman. Any other further questions from any of the
Not from me.
commissioners? Okay, with that being said, I would like to, if I may, open it up to public hearing at this time. I have a few cards on file here. Looks like we have about 4 of them.
Oh, that's your copy.
I'll f- The first card I have is from Mr. Evan Boyd, and I guess you've already said your piece already. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, okay, I got more coming up. Second card I have is from Ms. Pamela Pullen, and I believe you've already said what you need to say in your opening statement. Okay. Going down the list. Next one I have is Miss Sophie Borgia from Daly City, is a homeowner. And Ms. Borgia, if you would kindly step up and feel free to provide us your thoughts and concerns.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Sophie Borja from 16 Mel. I'm a homeowner, property owner for 1662, 1668 Bryan Street in Daly City. And I have quite a few concerns. I have nothing against CNG. It's more like safety for our residents and also for the safety of the environment. Natural gas is dangerous to work with and combustible. Natural gas is highly combustible and it can lead to explosions if not carefully handled. This is the reason that it is not used in vehicles more. Also, it exists mostly in the gaseous state, which makes handling it more difficult than oil. Natural gas is highly volatile and can be dangerous if handled or transported carelessly. True natural gas is colorless, odorless, and tasteless, which makes its leak detection very, very difficult. Luckily, gas companies add the sulfuric-like odor that accompanies natural gas in our homes. So when Ms. Pam mentioned about natural gas in our homes and CNG company dealing with natural gas, I think there's not a comparison on that, if I may say. Because when you cook something,
Ms. Borgia, please address the,
sorry.
instead of,
when you
thank
cook something in your house, you turn on your gas, most of the time you can smell it. But this particular natural gas that will be built by CNG or any other clean energy companies, as I've mentioned, will be colorless, odorless, and tasteless. And I'm really concerned why this particular site was picked.
Yeah.
The fact that there are hundreds of houses. The next house to this site, there's already a house next to it. And after that house, it's our house and other residentials across. And then on Edgeworth, there are also residentials. I mean, it's really surrounded mostly by residential houses. So I really do not understand why this particular company will be placed in the middle of residential properties. And I know Ms. Palm mentioned that they build hundreds, thousands of CNG in different states, busy street corners of New York especially. However, it was never mentioned if the busy streets are only offices. Are there any residentials close to any CNG companies that were built? And if so, that was not mentioned. And regarding the noise of the analyst, I know it was mentioned that it's a new compressor. My concern is if they did analytical or any research part of this situation, did they stay in a house close to that CNG future site? Or I mean, I really do not know because it was not specified if they stayed in a house at night or they only stayed outside. I mean, that's my concern as well. And my concern also, I know the man, I mean, I cannot remember his name. He mentioned something that there will be new parking spaces for the new facility. If there will be 60 employees on this new site, right now, parking is very, very difficult. If there will be 60 employees, it was not specified how many parking spaces will be given to his employees? I mean, those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Again, it's really the safety of the residentials that I'm here. I mean, and the second, I mean, anyway, that's my concern.
All right, thank you, Ms. Borgia. Ladies and gentlemen, for the rest of the speakers, this is just a friendly reminder that we allow 2 minutes per person. However, you know, this is a very sensitive nature, and we will try our best to work with you. If you come a little bit too redundant to some questions and answers that has already been provided, then I'll take the initiative to kind of hold you to time, but we definitely want to hear what you have to say. Ms. Borgia, thank you very much. Okay, next person is Marie Brizuela. Thank you, ma'am, from, and you're representing the Jefferson Elementary School District.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm on the school board. Our superintendent was unable to come, and I have a letter that he wrote. I think perhaps
Yeah.
you guys all get it. Do you want to see it?
Circulated, Marie.
Is that Bidanes?
I'll put that in the trash. No. Okay, I wasn't sure if you had gotten it yet or not, but he wasn't able to come. Our concern, and I'm glad I came tonight because I really learned a lot more about all of this, that I'm really happy I learned about it. It's a great explanation. But what we're concerned about is that we do have a school up there in Pauline Brown, and the children do walk up there because the gate is open. However, they don't walk just on one street. They come from the east side. They come from Washington. They come from many different places. So it's a school that takes children from various areas, not just Annie Street. So I want to make sure that that's understood. Presently, you don't have anything to do with it, but presently there's a problem with bike riders over there, but that's another story. That's another department we talked to. Anyway, so what we're concerned about is that we know, and I found out today that it's 4 o'clock in the morning, so our students are not there at 4 o'clock. But here, the superintendent was asking that between 9 o'clock and 2:30, pretty much they're in class. However, he forgot to mention that every Wednesday is early, they leave earlier. And also we have several days throughout the year that are minimum days. So all we really wanted to do was to see if we could partner, and we know we work very well with Allied Waste, so we're sure we're gonna be able to work with them, that perhaps we could have a schedule with them to know when is the time that's maybe most congested for some of those students, and if they could possibly use some safety technique where perhaps they're not gonna be all going the same way. When I first inquired about this, it was told to me that the trucks would go in one way and come out the other way. So we were thinking that a right-hand turn might be safer than a left-hand turn, being that children don't go to the corner to, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Gotcha, Marie.
Anyway, so we were concerned that, you know, some of the children are small, you know, and that we wanted to make it just safe. You know, we're not concerned about some of the things that we're hearing tonight because we weren't invested in that. We're talking mostly about the children. So if we could kind of work well with, you know, we will with Allied Waste, but let you know that those were our concerns. If we can work together to be sure that if it's a day of every Wednesday, perhaps the trucks could have a longer lunch hour or something. No, I mean, or come in earlier or whatever, just kind of see, and maybe we can view it for a while and see how many children really are walking there and how congested is it. We can't tell you right now, we just know children are down there. So if we could try to work together, we would be very happy. That's our concern.
Through the chair, please.
Uh,
Question
uh,
for Maria?
Yes?
Thank you.
Yeah, Maria,
Yes.
how you doing? The same trucks that have been going every day out of the yard now, did you guys have a problem with it before?
No,
I
but this
mean-
is the first time that this whole situation was brought to our attention.
But I mean, it has nothing to do with the CNG situation.
No,
In
no,
other
no.
words, the traffic flow has been there 30 years.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, Evan had said they're gonna
Right.
improve it. So did that assuage some of your concern, the way they're gonna do it?
No, I'm just saying, this is the first time we were
Oh,
aware of this whole
okay.
situation, so we're thinking, oh my God, this is something new.
Thank you.
It's happening, let's just plan and be sure it's safe. But like I said, sitting here, I've learned a lot.
Good.
And I think that most of those concerns, and I'm really glad you got a place to park off the street, because that is a problem. I had a problem today when I went to to the office to find a place to park. So I think that most of my personal concerns are pretty well answered.
Thank you.
But I would like to make sure that we don't overlook anything. And being that the letter here said, and our superintendent wrote from 9 to 2:30, he forgot to remember that we have days that are other days. So I think we can do that with Allied Waste. But since I was a messenger to come tonight, I'm here. But thank you very much for.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brizuela. Okay, next is a Miss Annie Huang, and I have an address on Edgeworth. I won't make it public. If you could kindly step on up, feel free. And let's hear what you have to say. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annie Huang, and I'm a resident on Edgeworth. It's actually like the one right next to the proposed resident. So obviously, me and my family are very concerned. Everything that you guys have mentioned, you guys didn't really say anything about if it was like the areas that had already have a CNG place. Is it next to like residential areas where people are actually living next to it for how many years? Like how many years down the line, like, are we gonna have health problems? We don't know. You guys never really mentioned. Like, yeah, I understand there's fire departments, police departments that can get notified, but if something becomes really big, it's gonna be too late, right? And we don't know, like, where were these trucks now fueling? Why is it gonna be built here in the middle of a residential area? And knowing that our value might go down, and just like the safety of everyone around there is, because we are gonna be living there and everyone else next to us, and the new homes that would be built across the street, there would be all residential, and this is all like a gas in the middle of where everyone's living. So that's our main concern. But everything else, the other miss has already addressed, so we're just worried about our safety and our health. So that's about it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Wong. Okay, there's a couple of issues I think that Ms. Wong brought up, and that was previous studies done on folks living in close proximity to CNG stations, and maybe some unexplained health issues that may arise, like maybe, I don't know, like contamination in the ground, and it doesn't manifest itself till later on. But what I've heard earlier this evening is it's being brought in by 2-inch pipe, but thank you very much, Ms. Swan.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could we possibly run down from somebody, of these clean energy sites, how many of them, discounting New York, let's leave them out of the picture, how many of these type of stations basically are built right in the middle of a residential neighborhood?
Good question.
Because a lot of them that I Googled, one, like the one they used in the example that you circulated to all of us, Michael. On one side of it is Lindbergh Fields runway. On the other side, there are no houses for 5 or 6 blocks, and they're across I-5, the San Diego freeway. So most of them seem to be fairly well isolated and not in residential neighborhoods. And I think that's something we should know.
This is something Clean Energy Solutions may be able to answer. The Planning Division hasn't done a comprehensive study of, how many are.
No, I
right,
wouldn't
yeah.
expect you to.
We have a number of stations that are built in residential area. Beth and her company have done numerous, over the years, sound studies for those types of areas that are required by the city when the project comes before the planning department. it's not uncommon for a CNG public fueling station to be on a block with other residential and other businesses. We have a number of public stations that operate in this manner. The fleet fueling stations are, in most cases, they are in industrial areas, but there are mixed uses that they are allowed in and they are built in, similar
Well,
to this project.
I suppose my concern here is very simply, Evan mentioned the one in Pacheco, where there was a couple of 100 feet away there were houses. This is not a couple of 100 feet. If you had houses only within a couple of 100 feet, they'd be way north of Washington and off to the east and west. This is right in the middle. And that's, I'm just, would like to know how common an occurrence this is.
Right. We have projects that are very, very similar to this with houses that are adjacent to the property line. The NFPA setback is a 10-foot setback from property line, and that's what is the code requirement for our station to the property line, no matter what is on the other side of the property.
Perfect. That answers my question. I knew if we look far enough, we'd get that 10 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along, the next speaker, Nancy Chow from Edgeworth Avenue. Ms. Chow. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Chow, and I live on Edgeworth Avenue. First of all, I wanted to thank Commissioner Satori for hitting a lot of my points, and I don't want you to ever give up. I do oppose this project for a lot of the reasons that has already been mentioned. Now, that proposed residential area, there's going to be 25 new residential homes built there. And then across the street from where you guys are building that CNG facility, there's a senior home. And those are luxury senior homes. We're talking like $4,000 a month or more. You know, you have to think about the impact to those businesses. You know, would you want your elderly mom or dad pay $4,000 a month to live across the street from a CNG facility? You know, those are the things that we have to think about. As an average citizen, you know, you think about, would you like, you know, clean air is good. I'm all pro-environment friendly. But you think about, as an average person, would you like to live close to a CNG facility? You know, that's what we have to think about. Unless, you know, the representative from CNG facility can tell me there's absolutely no danger, you know, from 1 to 10. Even if she tells me the danger is 1, it's not acceptable to me, you know, especially when there are a lot of people around the area. There are young children, there are senior citizens there. There are a lot of risks that are unknown. To me, there's no way we will know all the risks. There will always be unknown risk, and we have to account for that. And if there is an accident, if there's an explosion, how big is the explosion going to be? You know, how widely would that be impacted? And we're talking about human lives. And, you know, for a business to build a facility here out of convenience is not acceptable to me. Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead. Do you have anything else? Please don't leave out anything.
Let's see. And I'm concerned about the long-term maintenance. You know, right now you guys are saying that, you know, we have all these safety measures. But as time goes on, are you guys going to relax those measures? You know, are you going to start maintaining certain things, you know, because of cost savings, and it becomes more and more dangerous? So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ms. Chow. I'd like to defer to Mike on some of those issues, relaxing the measures. That's
Well, no, that would not happen. The applicant's required to constantly maintain a hazardous materials plan, an emergency response plan. The city's fire department and the applicant would make sure that that was in, both of those plans were in continual existence and being adhered to
And no
strictly.
requirements.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The fire department typically, conducts inspections of businesses, and this would just be one of those.
All right, I have no other speaker cards at this time.
Move to close the public hearing.
All right, motion to close the public hearing, the first and second. Any further debate on this to close the public hearing? Being that there is none, all those in, close, vote.
Yeah.
Voice vote, right?
Yep.
Okay, okay, we don't have to do it each person, okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. The public hearing is now
Ain't
closed.
democracy great?
We'd like to recommend that the Planning Commission move to the City Council the following recommendation. Adopt the findings as outlined herein.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being there is none, okay, that motion is passed. Affirm the environmental assessment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I am against this.
Okay, so, we have one opposed. One opposed?
Just putting this in
For the
record that I am against this because of public welfare, public interest, public safety, and see to it that the public are well protected on these grounds. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, to approve use permit UPR-5-15-10939 and design review DR-5-15-10939, subject to the conditions of approval outlined herein.
So moved.
Second.
Before we continue with that, just to restate so that it's use permit 5-15-10938, there's a typo in the agenda.
It's sure, thank you, Commissioner Edelman. Yes, because on the left side, it says 38. Thank you very much. Okay,
Just for the
so,
record.
okay, so we do have a motion by Commissioner,
I did.
And I second.
okay, and second by Commissioner Talarico, and this will require roll call vote, please.
Talarico,
Yes.
Crump,
Aye.
Edelman,
Yes.
Satori,
No.
Sylvester.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries, and when will this be heading to
The city council will consider this item on October 12th,
October 12th?
7 p.m. here.
Thank you very much. All right, there are no items additional on the agenda pertaining to hearings. Any public appearances, staff communications? Acquisitions, vacations, and et cetera. Like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly. See you later.